DeShaun Foster has found his next director of recruiting. What does that mean for the future commits? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. And here we go. Welcome back, everydayers. Where we get started today, UCLA has made some moves. They have made some moves to replace some of their leaders in the recruiting department, and they might be on the verge of getting some top-tier talent. Let's remind you of who those guys are. First, the Bruins making a big-time major move. You've got Marshawn Friloux. I could be saying the name wrong, but he is the guy that was formerly a director of player personnel at Sacramento State. He is charged, he is being tabbed as the next UCLA director of recruiting of sorts. So he's the senior football director of recruiting. He posted that on his old social media. So Marshawn, welcome to UCLA. What is he coming to UCLA for? What's the big reasoning this is of note? Well, UCLA lost a key member of the recruiting when Stacey Ford went to Oklahoma. All right. So you had somebody who, with DeShaun Foster, re-emphasized high school recruiting locally in Southern California. And we've seen a lot better results for UCLA in the class of 2025, or how they've handled transfer portal recruiting. A lot of those guys coming to the Bruins, key guys from Southern California, like Nico coming back, Madden, one-time Bruin commit coming back to Southern California, local guys staying in the state and going to UCLA, where he can get a great education. You still can compete in the Big Ten, compete nationally, get some chunk of change in the NIL, and most importantly, stay much closer to home. And DeShaun Foster wants the haters, but he wants the local kids too. That's what he was able to emphasize with Stacey Ford. With Marshawn coming, this is a guy who you're like, okay, what makes it so important that you're getting somebody from Sac State? Well, Sacramento State is trying to take that next step. They're making their leaps and bounds to work towards FBS level competition. And from as a Boise State grad assistant, working with the receivers, going to Bethune-Cookman, he has bounced around from various places. But now in these last few months has been a very important recruiter with Sac State over the last, however so long. He worked with the Hornets. You bring him to UCLA, this is a great opportunity. And DeShaun Foster sees something with Marshawn, and you have to make this hire quickly. You have a huge commitment coming up the next day or so in Micah Smith, a.k.a. Champ Smith, rated as a 4-star interior offensive lineman from Vero Beach, Florida. And if UCLA can secure his commitment, can make sure, hey, he comes to UCLA in the class of 2026, next thing you know, get another offensive lineman come to UCLA, or an offensive lineman come to UCLA in the class of 2026. Something that our own at Locked On, Brian Smith, the host of The Portal, has a good recruiting basis, especially knowledge of the Florida area. Talked about that with him on Memorial Day about a week and a half ago on this podcast. And the idea is, since that 2022 UCLA offensive line, it's been pretty rough the last couple of seasons, and there's not been an emphasis to truly go after high school recruiting. And you have to suffer through a poor year once or in a while when it comes to the offensive line. The Bruins haven't built from the ground up. You go get a Micah Smith, and our own Brian Smith says that's a plug-and-play guy as a freshman with his physical intangibles, and he's a two-way star over at Vero Beach. You go to Florida, you go into what's SEC country, what used to be Florida State's ACC territory, if that's in their home state. You're out bidding and out recruiting Ohio State, Alabama. Then you needed to go get somebody like a Marshawn to lead your recruiting department, because Sac State is trying to make some big noise in their football program. You bring Marshawn to UCLA, and in this day and age where you see one guy bounce to another school, whether it's coaching, players, whatever it may be, they had to make this move. So they bring Marshawn as the new senior football director of recruiting. I haven't seen it necessarily released from UCLA football, but Marshawn posted on his own social media. So you make the move because guys in the class of 26 are committing, like Micah Smith on June 7th. All right. Now he's crystal balled to UCLA. He's been projected by On3 to go to UCLA, and crystal ball from 24/7 Sports. And you're starting to see some UCLA guys kind of post on top of his recruitment, his commitment date, videos or links. And all right, you're like, okay, some of those are UCLA commits from the class of 2026. You're like, all right, they're feeling it. So you're all thinking, and I'm thinking, okay, this looks like an opportunity for UCLA to get an absolute stud in the offensive line and build something up front for the Bruins, and then become not just a local recruiting power, but become a national recruiting potential. Other guys, Cristobal to UCLA, you have the likes of, from a rival's perspective, Santana Carlos. That's another Florida kid, 5'11" slot receiver. UCLA, I know they have Rico Flores Jr., they've got Quasi Gilmore. They've got some talented receivers, but you always got to stock up, and the Bruins have done that in the portal. A lot of receivers in the class of 2026, but some of the players are taking official visits elsewhere. Maybe they flip their commitment, which is always a worry, whether it's a Micah Smith, whether it's if he does commit to UCLA. Any of these commits the Bruins already have or are looking forward to. But if you get Micah Smith, you have a Santana Carlos, 3-star receiver coming in, working between a Boston College, Purdue, Pittsburgh, UCLA, all schools, solid academics, looking for a football home. Maybe that's UCLA for him. And the next thing you know, that could potentially be back-to-back Florida commits in the class of 2026. And you're like, wow, UCLA is building something. A Western region team when it comes to recruiting. Their own in-house recruiting is going well. And then you go all the way across the country and you go get some of those recruits as well. And then when it comes to an in-state local product guy, Oscar Rios, he's not expected to commit until late June, but the wonder is, where does UCLA pivot after Nico Iamaleava? Nico, we're all expecting this year, unknown about 2026, whether it's the portal, whether it's the NFL draft, whether it's UCLA. What we do know is the Bruins have brought in Pierce Clarkson. They have Madden, who, for all intents and purposes, may not even be ready as a true freshman to start after losing his senior season, not having a lot of varsity playing time, because remember, he's in high school. He has to wait behind his brother, and then his senior season got cut short because he transferred after his first week of high school football from Warren to Long Beach Poly. So he will be a year or two away from development potentially. Does UCLA pivot to a 4-star guy that was a finalist at the Elite 11 quarterback competition in Oscar Rios from Downey? Someone who's not afraid of the noise and has been vocal at saying so about what UCLA's quarterback competition may look like, or their quarterback depth chart might look like heading into 2026. And UCLA is already battling some SEC, Big 12, local Western powers in the recruiting front. And if UCLA can get another Florida guy or two, you mix in a quarterback, you can set yourself up for future QBs, current QBs, local high school recruiting pipelines. You've got your new director of senior recruiting of sorts, with Marshawn coming to UCLA from Sac State. And DeShaun Foster has built himself a staff, retooled the staff, and once again reconnected with the local community and started to forge relationships across the country, in the islands, anywhere that there's football talent. Now UCLA, they're not exactly flexing their muscle, but they're showcasing to the rest of the country and to these recruits, we're competitive and you deserve to come to UCLA if we're coming out to watch you. We want you here and you should pick us. That's the good news for UCLA. Absolute good news. Next, we're talking the UCLA Super Regional. What did I see? UCLA is not favored in their own home Super Regional against UTSA, Texas San Antonio. Let's talk about the Bruins and Roadrunners next on Locked On UCLA. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot, hint, hint, Tyrese Halliburton, or a breakout player, again, Halliburton. There's never been a better time than now to get in on the situation with FanDuel, because they make it easier than ever to stay in the game before tip-off, live, player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And you're sitting there with FanDuel, and you're like, man, I'm going to wait till a late fourth-quarter trend. The Pacers, they're trailing the Thunder. You're like, the Pacers have done this every round. Well, they did it game one in the finals. They did it in game one against the, Oklahoma City Thunder. So maybe you're thinking, oh, Tyrese Halliburton, got the inside track to win the MVP of the series, or do something with some big-time fourth-quarter stats. Combine your pregame bet. Make it a same-game parlay and go all together with FanDuel. Because if you're new to FanDuel, it's perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Cruising on, we're talking UCLA baseball. The Bruins, 2 wins away from Omaha. They were so close in 2019, and they couldn't get it done with the number 1 team in the country. Since a pandemic, a couple of struggles in 21-22, postseasonless baseball in 23 and 24, including a woeful team last year that went 14 games under 500. And here they are, an unlikely bunch with a lot of freshmen from last year's team transforming into dominant sophomores. Roch Cholowski, you'll hear so much of his name this weekend in the Supers. You'll hear so much more if he makes it to Omaha with this UCLA club and building into the 2026 MLB draft. Maybe there'll be so many of this UCLA roster that from sophomores to draft-eligible juniors, they might be all over next year's MLB draft. But for now, we try to cheer on this UCLA team, push them forward for their first super regional hosting opportunity since 2019. What could very well be their last one hosted at the site that they play their ball games at Jackie Robinson Stadium. So this is what they got. Taking on a scrappy, and I mean scrappy, UTSA ball club. Talked about them a little bit, but Texas San Antonio is a team that is 47-13. They played very well in the AAC, got an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament as a team that went 25-2 at home, beat Texas in the regular season, which was the number 2 overall seed in a midweek. They beat Texas A&M in the regular season. And then, oh, by the way, beat Texas twice in their regional. It didn't even go to the if necessary game, spanked them twice, trailing the first time, up 7-0 the second time, and swept through the regional hosted by the number 2 overall seed in a shocking opening weekend of NCAA tournament play. So you could argue, UCLA, this is either a break or this is a matchup that is pretty similar. UTSA can swing the bats. Close to 6 guys that can swing it over 300 in their everyday lineup. A team that does give up some runs, has played better as of late, pitching on the mound, and they got a rock-solid, boring defense. Well, UCLA on their own side is led by Roch Cholowski, potential number 1 pick at the shortstop spot. Talks so much, I think, on the Big Ten Network about how he was up till the final moments before in the weekend prior to the NCAA regionals or during it, where he was fielding ground balls till like 12:30 in the morning. And the dedication to the craft defensively is just as important as his batting average. That is absurd. Well over 350, leads the team with a bunch of home runs, RBIs galore. He was your Big Ten Player of the Year. Outstanding in Roch Cholowski, but he wasn't even the most outstanding player on the weekends. And I don't even think the player who was the most outstanding player named in that LA regional was actually the best player. I think it was Peyton Brennan, who had many big swings, multi-hit performances in UCLA's 3-game sweep over every single opponent in the regional, which is pretty rare. You play one team in the first round, a winner's bracket game, and then play somebody different in game 3. UCLA faced 3 different opponents, different situations, and jumped out on top. So this is what makes this weekend so important for UCLA. They can establish something. Maybe a win here and getting themselves into Omaha. Competing, if not surprising everybody and winning a national championship, can give them that funding, the donor support, the NIL support to continue to keep these guys here and be competitive for years to come in the Big Ten, which they absolutely should be. The Big Ten is nowhere near the depth of the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 for that matter. So UCLA should expect, like they did this year, to win or compete for ties atop the Big Ten standings because you're not going to play the same schedule as everybody else. That's why Iowa was in line to potentially win a Big Ten regular season championship until they got crushed their last 3 weekends of conference and non-conference play. And then even make the tournament as a top 3 team in the conference where they sent 4 teams to the NCAA tournament. UCLA, Oregon, USC, Nebraska. All right? So here the Bruins are battling their way to Omaha as the last remaining Big Ten team. But their pitching has not been the most sought after right now. They have struggled at times, and while they might see some returns from injured players, get some more returns from just value, like John Savage was just putting innings together with a bullpen-like day, all right? If you think the Dodgers have struggled with their pitching in their bullpen, look at UCLA's numbers all season long. Look at what they've had to do with the patchwork pitching performance here and there, but their bats have done the talking. Clean defense, leading the country in double plays turned. So this game and this team and this opportunity for the Bruins will come down to, yes, how well they pitch, but can they swing it and play clean defense? Every single game in their regional, UCLA was up. They were up early against Fresno State to the tune of a 19-4 beatdown. They jumped on Arizona State up 7-0 in the second inning. Got up, 8-0 against UC Irvine, who I thought was going to win that regional, wrongfully so. And we're up even bigger. Their leads got bigger and bigger and bigger against the worst pitching on the weekend. Now, it'll be a little different when UTSA possesses just as strong of an offense, similar numbers on the pitching staff, which has been better as of late, near the 70s, though, in the country when it comes to ERA, but a solid, scrappy defense that won't be flashy, but won't make errors. And sometimes in the postseason, it's the team that makes all the plays. You're like, oh, they just hit a ground ball to short, and he didn't make an error. He didn't boot the ball. Well, that's what you need. You make the plays when needed, and you get the clutch hits when the opportunity presents itself. And that's not what UCLA did at times back in 2019 when they were the number one team in the country against Michigan. And here they are against Texas San Antonio, against the Roadrunners, who are feeling, hey, we just took down the number 2 team in the country in their place multiple times. We're going to go to Los Angeles and be afraid? They're not feeling afraid. Guarantee you they do not. A 47-13 team, while UCLA is like, man, we're getting doubted in our own regional by myself, by other people. There's multiple people I've thought and talked to about, oh, UCLA is not going to win it. It would be ASU. It'd be Irvine. And the Bruins went out and had the most dominant weekend, arguably, maybe outside of Texas UTSA, in a regional, and said, hey, we're going to prove the doubters wrong, and we're going to do it one more time to get to Omaha. And the Bruins are one step away from doing so. But what do some of the other experts think and what do they talk about? I'll tell you next on Locked On UCLA. All right, so I was looking at D1 Baseball's projections. They've got 12 different people projecting and predicting every series, and this is where UCLA versus UTSA. So you've got 11 different picks in this series, and this is who they are. They got Joe Healy, Darren Vaught, Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers, Mark Etheridge, Shotgun Spratling, Eric Sorensen, Jack DeLongchamp. You got a bunch of guys. The majority of these people, 8 of them, chose UCLA. 8 people chose UCLA to beat UTSA. But the 3 that didn't, Mark Etheridge, you got Kendall Rogers, Aaron Fitt, who have been the faces of D1 baseball, some of the best writers, some of the best leaders in college baseball coverage, which is a sport that I think has been underappreciated for a very long time, especially lately. They're out there saying UTSA, and you could say, all right, regional bias. You've probably seen Shotgun go cover a lot of USC baseball in recent times. So the West Coast guys are more likely to go with UCLA, the host, the name. But those guys who have covered the teams in the South and the Texas areas and saw what happened when multiple teams in the SEC went down, including Texas in their own home regional, you're like, oh, well, Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt, they believe in the Roadrunners, a team that can lay down a bunt, that can get the job done. And the UCLA Bats are prone to going quiet like they did against Oregon in a weekend, like they did in the Big Ten tournament, although that was a 4-game set in a week with weird weather and Nebraska having the performance of a lifetime from their starter in front of a super home crowd, literally in Omaha for the Big Ten tournament final. So there is a chance for UCLA to trail. What will determine this weekend? I think in my mind, what would change and what will impact this weekend the most is what happens when UCLA trails. Now there's the long shot that UCLA could dominate both games so thoroughly that they don't trail in their first 5 tournament games. All right. So what I'm saying is, yes, obviously they can win, but if UCLA comes out and does the same exact thing, the same recipe for success, 5 straight games to get to Omaha without trailing and having 4-run leads before the opposition scores, right? Just absolutely dominates in the first inning, second inning, third inning, and piles it on, then yes, obviously that would be something for success. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the Roadrunners are going to come out and they will take a lead. I'm not saying they're going to dominate, not saying they're going to win game 1, game 2, win the series at this moment, but they at some point in a game this weekend will take a lead. And how do the Bruins respond? They had some of the biggest comebacks this year, multiple 5-run plus comebacks. All right, they were trailing in a game in the Big Ten tournament where all they had to do was win one game. big inning, break it open. I believe that was against Illinois, and they win the game. And all they had to do is win 1 of 2 to make it to the Big Ten tournament semis. So when UCLA trails and if the other team has their starting pitcher playing really well, throwing the ball well, that's huge. Because for the Roadrunners, one of their best pitchers is their closer. The starters numbers are just like UCLA starting numbers. There's not a weekend rotation. This is almost like October in the Major League Baseball playoffs, where these guys will be on short leashes. Who scores first is going to come down to bullpen, bullpen, bullpen. And maybe night one team will get the upper hand. And, it looks like Easton Hawk's dominating. Or maybe it's the UTSA closer or whatever it's going to look like. But when you see that guy the second night in a row, or if they go to a game 3, then that would be what happens when you see him potentially for a third straight day if UCLA, because they're playing a Saturday through Monday series, if it's a best of 3. Then how do they respond when you face the same guys over and over again? And John Savage is going to have a short leash. Over at UTSA, they're going to have the same thing. And some of the national guys do think UCLA will fall short in their own home regional. And as much as I doubted the Bruins in their regional, there is cause for concern with their pitching staff, just as there is with UTSA on the other side. So whoever plays clean defense doesn't make mistakes. If the Bruins, they will allow base runners. All right, they will allow base runners. The opposition will score. The runners will run. They love to run. The Road Runners will run wild. So this is huge on UCLA, keeping traffic off the bases, not allowing them to advance the extra 90 feet, or if you want to go all the way around, get an extra 180 feet. This is where the pitching staff, the catcher, all have to be in communication. This is where the second baseman, Roch Cholowski, gets short, had to be good at holding on the runners. Like, all right, keeping shortening those leads. And that's where having some of the best defensive play, the best infield at turning double plays this year, they've had the most opportunities to. That's where the analytics, the shifting, all plays a factor leading into this matchup. And this is where the Roadrunners are. They're not going to let themselves play into a double play situation. Expect a lot more bunts, a steal, a hit and run. They will do what it takes to win a ball game in Los Angeles and then try and do it again. So UTSA, they're doing their best to limit as many double plays as possible, get into scoring position. If it's a second and third, if it's a first and third, expect something to happen, all right? Maybe not Texas Tech versus UCLA in the Women's College World Series where they stole home when the catcher was simply throwing the ball back to the pitcher. But UTSA, they got nothing to lose. They're 2 wins away from Omaha just like UCLA is. And they will put the pedal to the metal. The Bruins, hey, keep those bats red hot. You've only had a few days off. Although they get the extra day off here on the super regional weekends. You're playing at home. I hope, I don't know if I expect, but I hope it's a packed out crowd at Jackie Robinson Stadium. And then the Bruins take care of business. It's going to come down to who's going to get the first punch. These have been mostly front runners in their opening weekend. Although UTSA was trailing big against Texas in the winners bracket game, came back to win that game. Who throws the first haymaker? And who gets back up? UTSA has gotten back up, mostly being a front runner. UCLA has not trailed so far. And what can they do when the game's tough a little late, or if they're down 3-0 early, which is a likely possibility? My prediction, UCLA in 3. But don't expect this to be an easy series. Under no circumstances. Can they work together with the bullpen, get enough outs from the starting pitching, and will the bat stay alive, and will the ball be flying out on a week where it's not as hot in Los Angeles? UCLA played a day game against Fresno State. It was a warm weekend in LA last week. You watch some of the Dodger games this week, you're like, wow, those later games, it's been cold. It was rainy this week in Los Angeles at times. So maybe the ball's not going to fly out. We might see lower scoring games than anticipated. Now, it is an earlier start time on a Saturday and on a Sunday as well. Can UCLA or UTSA get enough from their starting pitching? And whoever does that will probably win the series. Or if it's not enough starting pitching, how much will the bullpen be taxed game 1 or game 2? And can they survive in a 2-game sweep without forcing a game 3? For me, I say the Bruins in 3. I don't see a sweep, but a 2 out of 3 series, anything can happen. And that's what makes it fun. All right. So for the last team alive in our academic athletic calendar year, let's get ready to cheer on the Bruins. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight by fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.